The restaurant was full of noise, voices, and fast footsteps as the evening rush reached its peak. Maya, a young waitress with tired eyes and a soft voice, moved quickly from one table to another, carrying trays heavier than her arms liked to admit. She worked double shifts almost every day because her sick mother needed expensive medicine. And this job was the only thing keeping their small apartment safe. Still, she always tried to smile at customers, even when they were rude or impatient. On this night, she did not expect anything different. But she was wrong. Something big was about to happen, something that would change her life forever. In the middle of the busy room sat a well-dressed man with shiny shoes, expensive rings, and a face that showed he believed he was better than everyone else. His voice was loud, sharp, and designed to get attention. When Maya approached his table with a polite smile, he barely looked at her. Instead, he sneered and asked if the restaurant hired children now. Maya felt her cheeks burn. But she only bowed her head and asked what he would like to order. He gave his order with a sarcastic tone, making sure everyone around could hear him insult her again and again. Many customers glanced at Maya with sympathy, but no one spoke up. After all, it was a busy restaurant, and everyone just wanted to eat and leave. Maya quietly wrote down the order and walked away, trying to ignore the sting in her chest. She had dealt with rude people before, but tonight felt heavier. Maybe it was because she was tired, or maybe because she had so many worries waiting at home. She wished she could just disappear for a moment, even 1 minute of peace, but life was rarely that kind to her. When Maya came back to serve the man's food, he suddenly pointed toward the corner of the restaurant where an old piano sat. The piano was dusty, ignored, almost forgotten by everyone except the cleaning staff. Maya froze the moment she saw where he pointed. Her heart dropped. She already knew what was coming. The man leaned back in his chair and spoke loudly enough for half the room to hear. "I heard from another waiter that you know how to play that thing." "Well, go on then. Prove it." Maya felt her breath catch. She had not touched a piano in years, not since life fell apart. Not since her mother fell sick and she had to quit music school and work full-time to survive. Music used to be her world. But now it lived only in old memories and dusty dreams. She wanted to say no. She wanted to tell him she was busy. She wanted to run. But the man grinned like he was challenging her, like he wanted to embarrass her. His voice grew louder. "What's wrong?" "Afraid, if you really know how to play." "Show us." The restaurant grew quieter. People turned their heads. Curious faces watched her every move. Some looked confused. Others looked excited. Maya felt small under their eyes. Her hands shook slightly as she held the tray. She tried to explain that she was working and needed to serve other tables. But the man interrupted, saying he would complain to the manager if she refused. His friends laughed as if it was a joke, but Maya's heart sank deeper. She could not afford trouble. She needed this job too much. Her manager noticed the commotion from across the room. He raised a questioning eyebrow at her. Maya swallowed hard and nodded slightly, trying to show that she could handle it. The manager didn't stop her because he didn't know her story. He didn't know how much she hated attention or how much she feared the piano now. He only wanted the restaurant to stay calm and customers to stay happy. With shaking hands and a stomach full of nerves, Maya walked slowly toward the old piano. Every step felt heavy. Every breath grew tighter. The sounds of the room faded behind her, replaced by the pounding of her own heartbeat. She reached the piano bench and stood still for a moment, staring at the dusty keys. Memories flashed in her mind, her mother smiling while teaching her notes. Her childhood dream of becoming a professional musician. The night she had to quit school because they could not afford rent. Everything came back at once, and it hurt. The rude man clapped mockingly from his seat. Telling her to hurry, his voice felt like a slap. Maya sat down on the bench, feeling the old wood creak under her weight. Her fingers hovered over the keys. Trembling slightly, she closed her eyes for a moment. Trying to gather courage, she did not know if she still had any talent left. She did not know if she could do this without breaking, but she also knew she could not walk away. Not tonight. The room waited, breathless and silent. Maya opened her eyes slowly and placed her fingers on the keys. She took a deep breath and whispered to herself. Just one note, and in that moment, everything was about to change. Maya sat in front of the piano with her heart beating so fast she could feel it in her throat. Her hands trembled above the keys, and for a moment, she forgot how to breathe. The restaurant around her was still buzzing quietly. But the sound felt distant, like she was underwater. All she could truly hear was her own fear. Heavy and loud inside her chest, she had not played in years. Not since life forced her to give up everything she loved. Music had once been her safe place, her dream, her future. But now, sitting here because of a rude man's demand, she felt exposed, small, and helpless as the seconds stretched on. She remembered the last time she touched a piano. It was the night she told her mother she would drop out of music school. Her mother had cried softly, not because she was disappointed, but because she knew how much Maya loved music. That memory still burned in her heart. And now, staring at the dusty keys, she felt that old pain rising again. She wondered if she still had any music left inside her, or if the years of struggle had drained it away. Behind her, the rude man tapped his fingers loudly on the table. Pretending to be bored, his friends whispered and laughed. Some customers looked annoyed, thinking this was a waste of time. Others watched with curiosity, wondering if the shy waitress really knew how to play. Maya's manager stood near the counter, unsure if he should step in or stay back for the first time in a long while. Maya felt like the entire world was staring at her, waiting for her to fail or succeed. And she didn't know which frightened her more. Finally, she let out a slow breath and pressed a single key. The sound was soft, almost too quiet, but it echoed through the room with a strange, gentle clarity. People turned their heads. Surprised by the sudden sweetness of the note, Maya closed her eyes, letting her fingers rest on the keys for a moment. The first note had felt like touching an old friend. Familiar yet distant, her fear didn't vanish. But something inside her shifted, a tiny spark flickering back to life. She pressed another key, then another. Slowly, she began to play a simple melody she learned as a child. A piece her mother had taught her while sitting beside her on their old, broken piano. The melody was soft and fragile, but full of warmth, like sunlight sneaking through clouds. As the notes floated into the air, the room grew quieter. Even the kitchen noise softened. People who had been talking or laughing slowly turned their attention fully to her. Unsure at first, but gradually drawn in, Maya's hands shook less as she moved down the keys. Each note reminded her of the life she used to have. The dreams she left behind. She remembered practicing for hours, laughing with her mother, performing in small school events. She remembered the hope she once carried, the happiness she felt when she made music for others. Those memories slipped into the melody, adding emotion to every note she played. As her confidence grew, Maya switched to a more complex tune, something she had not played since her music school days. Her fingers moved faster, smoother, with surprising accuracy. It was as if her hands remembered everything, even if her mind had forgotten. A few customers gasped softly, realizing that this was no normal waitress playing. This was someone with real skill, someone who once trained seriously, someone who had talent far beyond what anyone expected. Even the rude man stopped smirking. His eyes widened slightly, and he leaned forward. Confused by what he was hearing, he had wanted to embarrass her, to make her look foolish in front of everyone, but instead, He had unknowingly forced open a door Maya had kept locked for years. And what came out was something powerful, something beautiful. Maya felt the music flowing through her like a river, washing away the noise, the pressure, the doubts. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't thinking about bills, or her mother's medicine, or her manager's expectations. She wasn't thinking about the rude man or the audience watching her. She was thinking only of the music, of the memories, of the emotions she had buried to survive. Playing felt like breathing again, like finally waking up from a long, dark sleep. Customers who had been irritated were now silent, their eyes fixed on her. A young girl at a nearby table whispered to her mother, asking if the waitress was a real pianist. An old man near the window closed his eyes and let the music carry him. The manager's mouth hung open, shocked by the hidden talent right under his roof. Even the chefs had stepped out from the kitchen, wiping their hands on aprons as they gathered near the doorway to listen. Maya's melody softened, slowing down as she approached the end of the piece. Her fingers trembled once again, but not from fear this time, from emotion. The final notes drifted gently into the air, like a sigh, like a memory fading into silence. When she lifted her hands from the keys, the room remained still. Everyone seemed to hold their breath, unsure if they should clap or stay quiet. Maya opened her eyes slowly and looked around, surprised by the stillness she found. And in that fragile moment, she realized something important. She had not lost her music. It had been waiting inside her all along, waiting for the right moment, the right push, the right spark to wake it up again. She had come to the piano scared and forced. But she was leaving this moment with something she thought she had lost forever. Her own voice, her own talent, her own power, and the night was only just beginning. The silence after Maya finished her first song felt almost unreal. It was the kind of silence that comes only after something unexpected and beautiful fills a room. People sat still, their eyes wide, their hearts touched in a way they did not expect when they walked into the restaurant that evening. Maya herself could hardly understand what had just happened. She stared at her own hands, trembling slightly above the piano keys, wondering how they had remembered something she thought she had forgotten forever. But before she could fully take a breath, the rude man who had forced her to play in the first place leaned forward in his chair. His expression was no longer amused. His smirk was gone, replaced by something strange, confusion mixed with irritation and maybe even disbelief. He opened his mouth to speak, but for once he said nothing. Instead, his hand, which had been tapping arrogantly earlier, suddenly stopped. It seemed even he could not deny what he had just heard. Maya felt her cheeks warm under the weight of everyone's eyes. She wanted to stand up and return to her work, but something inside her paused. A tiny spark she thought had died long ago felt like it was waking up. The customers weren't looking at her like a waitress anymore. They were looking at her like someone special, someone talented, someone who had just shown them something rare. She didn't know what to do with that feeling. It scared her and comforted her at the same time. Before she could move, a small voice from the back of the restaurant called out. It belonged to a child, maybe 6 or 7 years old, she said softly. Can she play another one? At first, Maya wasn't sure she heard correctly, but then the girl repeated it, louder this time. Her mother tried to hush her, embarrassed, but the child's innocent request broke the silence like a gentle push. Several customers nodded quietly, as if saying they'd like to hear more too, even if they didn't dare speak up. Maya looked toward her manager. Unsure if she was allowed to continue, her manager gave her a slow, stunned nod, something between admiration and disbelief. His expression said, I didn't know you could do this, but please keep going. Maya turned back to the piano, her heart beating fast again. Only this time, it wasn't fear. It was something else. Something like hope. Something like remembering who she used to be. She placed her fingers on the keys again. The piano felt a little less dusty, a little less forgotten. As if it too had woken up after years of silence. This time, Maya chose a different melody. Something soft and haunting. Something she created herself long ago, but never shared with anyone. It was a tune she used to play when she sat by her window as a teenager, dreaming about a future where she would perform on real stages. A future she believed was gone forever. The first note slipped into the air like a whisper. The room leaned into it. Drawn by its gentle sadness, Maya felt the music flow through her like a river she had kept trapped behind a wall for too long. Each note pulled out a memory. Her mother's tired smile. The day she received her acceptance letter to music school. The night she gave it all up to save their home, she poured those emotions into every sound, letting them rise and fall with the melody. The rude man shifted uncomfortably in his chair as the music continued. At first, he tried to look uninterested, glancing at his phone, adjusting his jacket, but he could not hide forever. Something about the music pulled at him, something he didn't expect. He looked around and saw the faces of the customers focused, touched, silent, even his own friends, who had laughed earlier, now listened with genuine awe. He clenched his jaw. Realizing that he had become invisible in a moment he tried to control, the spotlight belonged entirely to Maya. Meanwhile, Maya's fingers moved with confidence she didn't know she still had. The melody grew stronger, filled with emotion that wrapped itself around everyone in the room. People forgot their meals, forgot their conversations, forgot their stress. The restaurant was no longer just a place to eat for these few minutes. It became a concert hall, a space where strangers shared the same breath, the same awe, the same softness in their hearts. Some customers held their hands to their chests. Moved by the unexpected beauty, a young couple leaned into each other. Smiling quietly, an elderly woman wiped a tear from her eye. The kitchen staff, who had stepped forward earlier, now stood completely still, with flour on their aprons and surprise on their faces. A waiter near the door whispered, "I had no idea she could play like this." His voice shook with amazement. Maya reached the most emotional part of the song. Her own secret favorite moment. The part that always made her close her eyes when she played alone. She let the music swell gently, then fall again, like a sigh. Like a heartbeat, like a memory begging not to be forgotten. When she finally touched the last note, the sound floated through the room and hung there for a long moment before fading into stillness again. This time, the silence was not confusion or shock, it was reverence. Then, slowly, as if waking from a dream, the restaurant filled with applause, louder and more heartfelt than before. People clapped not just for her skill, but for the emotion she poured out. Maya's eyes stung with tears. She tried to blink away. She had not expected this, not in a place where she served food and cleaned tables. She had not expected music to find her again, and as the applause continued, Maya felt something shift deep inside her. Something that whispered, "You were meant for this." Something that told her she was not done, not broken, not forgotten. She didn't know it yet. But tonight was the beginning of something bigger. Something she never dared hope for again. The applause slowly faded, but the feeling in the room stayed warm and heavy. Like the last glow of a sunset, Maya sat still on the piano bench, her hands resting gently on her lap, trying to understand what had just happened. She felt like she had opened a door she kept locked for years. And behind that door was a version of herself she thought she had lost forever. Her heart wasn't racing from fear anymore. It was beating with something new, a quiet strength she didn't recognize at first. As she stood up from the bench, she expected the moment to be over. She expected people to return to their meals and conversations, to forget her and move on, but instead, the room stayed focused on her. People were still watching, not with judgment, but with admiration. Some even looked grateful, as if she had given them something precious without meaning to. Maya felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment, gratitude and confusion all at once. She didn't know how to handle so much attention. She wasn't used to being seen. Just as she was about to return to her work, a woman from one of the tables approached her. She looked kind, dressed in simple clothes, with tired eyes that suggested life wasn't always easy for her either. She whispered softly, "My husband passed away last year, and the song you played reminded me of him. Thank you for that." Maya didn't know what to say at first. The woman's voice trembled, but her smile was full of warmth. Maya placed a hand gently over her heart and nodded, feeling the heavy emotion clung to her chest. Behind the woman, other customers also approached. Some simply smiled, others praised her talent. One older man reached out and lightly touched her shoulder, saying, "Young lady, that was the most beautiful music I've heard in a long time." Maya looked down, shy and overwhelmed. She had never received this kind of praise, not even when she was in music school. It felt unreal, like she had stepped into another world, one where her dream was alive again. But the most surprising moment came when the child who had asked for a second song came running forward, her small hands cupped together as if holding something valuable. When she reached Maya, she opened her hands and offered her a tiny paper flower, folded neatly from a napkin. "You're really good," the girl said with a wide smile. "This is for you." Maya stared at the paper flower for a long moment, tears gathering in her eyes. A simple gift, yet more meaningful than anything she had held in a long time. Meanwhile, the rude man who started all this sat frozen in his chair. His face was stiff and pale. His earlier confidence had vanished completely. He didn't clap, didn't smile, didn't even look angry. He simply looked lost, as if he could not understand how the situation had turned against him. He had wanted to humiliate her, to make her feel small and powerless. But instead, he had exposed her gift to the world. And now, everyone saw her not as a waitress, but as a musician with a heart full of emotion. The man's friends whispered quietly among themselves, avoiding his eyes so they wouldn't add to his embarrassment, as Maya finally walked back toward the counter. Her steps felt lighter, almost floating. Something inside her had changed, something deep and quiet. Like a whisper telling her she was more than she believed, she passed her manager, who looked at her with wide eyes. Still speechless, he finally cleared his throat and said in a low voice, "Why didn't you tell us you could play like that?" Maya gave him a small, shy shrug. She didn't know how to explain that she had buried her music because life had forced her to, or that she had convinced herself it didn't matter anymore. The manager rubbed the back of his neck, unsure what to do. The kitchen staff behind him exchanged looks of amazement. One of them said, "Boss, we should make her play every night," and everyone laughed softly. But Maya found herself smiling for the first time that evening, a real smile. Warm and alive, the sound of laughter didn't hurt her tonight. It felt gentle, kind, like a soft blanket wrapped around her. As she returned to serving tables, customers treated her differently. They spoke to her with respect, with softness. Some even thanked her again, and their words felt like little sparks inside her. She didn't feel invisible anymore. She didn't feel like just a waitress. She felt seen, appreciated, and valued, even though her apron was still tied around her waist and her hair still messy from the rush. Tonight she felt like more than her tired routine. Hours passed, and the restaurant slowly emptied as the night grew quieter. But the atmosphere was different now, like the room still held the memory of her music within its walls. Even after the last customers left, Maya found herself staring again at the piano in the corner. It didn't look dusty anymore. It looked inviting, familiar, like something waiting for her to return. She walked to it slowly, touching the keys again with gentle fingers. A soft hum escaped her lips. A melody she hadn't played yet, something new. something growing from tonight's emotions. She didn't play a full song, just a few notes. But they were enough to tell her she wasn't done with music, enough to tell her she wasn't done with her own dreams. And deep inside her heart, a small but powerful thought formed. I thought she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Maybe my story isn't over. That night, after the restaurant finally closed, Maya stayed behind to finish her cleaning duties. The chairs were stacked, the lights were dimmed, and only the low hum of the refrigerator filled the empty air. But even in the silence, she could still feel the echo of her own music hanging inside the room like a memory that refused to fade. She wiped the counter slowly, lost in thought, her mind replaying the applause, the smiles, the paper flower from the little girl. Everything felt unreal, like she had stepped into someone else's life for a moment. Her manager approached her with hesitant steps, still unsure how to speak to her after witnessing something so unexpected. He cleared his throat awkwardly before saying, "You know, if you ever want to play again, even just once in a while, the piano is always there." Maya looked up. Surprised by his gentleness, he had always been a strict boss, focused on efficiency, rules, and keeping customers satisfied, but tonight he spoke softly. As if talking to someone fragile and important, she nodded politely, trying to hide the sudden warmth rising in her chest. She didn't trust herself to speak without her voice shaking after finishing her tasks. Maya walked toward the exit with her backpack slung over her shoulder. But before she reached the door, she stopped and glanced back at the piano one last time. It looked calm and quiet, like it was waiting. She felt something pull her toward it, something gentle but impossible to ignore. Slowly, she walked back, placed her hand on the wooden frame, and let out a soft sigh. "Maybe tomorrow," she whispered under her breath. Then she turned off the last light and stepped outside into the cool night air. The walk home was long, but tonight it didn't feel tiring. The streetlights glowed softly. The breeze brushed against her face like a comforting hand. And for the first time in months, maybe years, she allowed herself to think about her dreams without shutting the thought down immediately. She remembered the nights when she used to practice until her fingers hurt, the mornings when she woke up excited just to play again. She remembered the teachers who said she had promise, the competitions she almost won, the future that once seemed bright as she walked. She passed by a closed music shop. In the window sat a beautiful black grand piano, gleaming under the faint streetlight. She stopped, staring at it through the glass. Her reflection looked back at her tired eyes. Worn uniform, messy hair, but behind the exhaustion, she saw something else now. Something alive, something hopeful. She raised her hand, placing it lightly against the cool window, feeling an emotional ache she hadn't felt in a long time, the ache of wanting something deeply. When she finally reached her small apartment, the lights were already off. Her mother slept on the couch, wrapped in a blanket. Her breathing was soft but weak. Maya quietly placed a kiss on her mother's forehead before sitting beside her with a deep sigh. She pulled out the little paper flower from her pocket and placed it on the table. She stared at it for a long time, that tiny folded napkin carrying more meaning than most words ever could. It was proof that her music still had the power to touch people. Proof that she still had something special inside her. Later that night, lying awake in her small bed, Maya heard her mother stir. "You're home." Her mother whispered weakly. Maya turned toward her and smiled. "Yes, Mom, I'm here." Her mother blinked slowly, then said, "You played piano tonight, didn't you?" Maya froze, shocked. "How do you know?" Her mother gave a small, shaky smile. "You look different. Lighter, like you used to after practice." Maya felt tears sting her eyes. She hadn't realized the change was that visible. She told her mother everything. The rude man, the crowd, the applause, the paper flower. Every detail poured out of her like water from a shaken bottle. Her mother listened quietly, her weak smile growing wider with every word. When Maya finished, her mother whispered, "I always knew you would find your way back. Music never leaves the heart." Even when life gets heavy, Maya leaned forward, resting her forehead against her mother's shoulder. Tears slipped silently down her face. Her mother's hand gently stroked her hair. As fragile but warm as ever, the next day at the restaurant. Something felt different the moment she walked in. The staff greeted her with wide smiles. Customers she had never spoken to waved at her as she passed by. A few whispered to each other, clearly recognizing her as the girl from last night's performance. Some even asked politely if she would play again that evening. Maya felt shy, overwhelmed, and confused by the sudden attention. But also strangely comforted. She wasn't invisible anymore. During a slow hour in the afternoon, she found herself wandering to the piano again. Her fingers hovered above the keys, and for a moment she simply listened to the quiet hum of the restaurant. But just as she was about to press a note, she heard a voice behind her. "You really were amazing." The voice wasn't mocking or sharp. It was soft and sincere. She turned slowly. It was the rude man from last night. Only he didn't look rude anymore. He looked ashamed. His posture was stiff, his jaw tight, his eyes avoiding hers as he held his hands awkwardly in front of him. Maya froze, unsure what to expect. He took a deep breath and said something she never imagined she would hear. "I owe you an apology." And for the first time since meeting him, Maya saw something human in his eyes, something broken, something honest, and she had no idea what he was going to say next. Maya did not move when she heard his apology. Her hand stayed frozen above the piano keys, and her breath caught in her throat. She had imagined this moment in many different ways. Anger, confrontation, maybe even a sarcastic remark, but never this. The rude man from last night stood in front of her like someone who had lost a fight with his own pride. His shoulders were tense, his face pale, and his eyes shifting nervously as if he wasn't sure if she would listen at all. I'm sorry," he repeated, his voice low, almost shaky. It was the first time Maya had heard him speak without arrogance. He took a slow breath and added, "I shouldn't have treated you that way. I was rude, disrespectful, and completely out of line." Maya blinked slowly, unsure what to say. She had expected him to walk in with insults again, not apologies. But something about his voice sounded genuinely troubled, as though the events of last night had replayed in his mind again and again until he couldn't ignore the guilt. Maya stayed quiet. Her silence made him even more uneasy. He shifted his weight, rubbed the back of his neck, then finally met her eyes. "Look, I don't expect you to forgive me," he said softly. "But I couldn't sleep last night, not after seeing how talented you are. And realizing how badly I behaved." His voice cracked slightly at the end. Maya noticed, and for the first time she saw him not as a bully, but as a flawed person struggling with his own mistakes. She gave him a small nod, not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. "Thank you for saying that," she whispered. Her voice was gentle, the same soft tone she used with customers every day. But today it carried something deeper: maturity, calmness, even quiet strength. The man looked relieved just hearing her speak, but still uneasy. "If there's anything I can do to make up for it, just tell me," he said, though he clearly didn't know what that anything could be. Maya shook her head politely. "I don't need anything," she said. "Just treat people kindly next time." Her words were simple, but they landed heavily on him. He nodded slowly, swallowing hard, and whispered, "I will," before stepping back uncertainly. He looked like someone who had learned a painful lesson about how his behavior affected others. Before he could walk away, Maya surprised herself by asking, "Why did you act that way?" The question slipped out before she could stop herself. He looked stunned, as if no one had ever asked him that before. After a long pause, he exhaled deeply. "Because I'm used to being in control," he said. "At work, at home, everywhere, and yesterday I had a terrible day. And I took it out on you, someone who did nothing wrong." He lowered his eyes. "Embarrassed? I'm not proud of it." Maya nodded quietly. Understanding more than she expected, life had taught her that people often hide their pain behind anger or arrogance. But she also knew that being hurt didn't give anyone the right to hurt others. "We all have bad days," she said softly. "But we choose what we do with them." He listened like a student learning from someone wiser than him. Before the conversation could continue, Maya's manager called her from across the room. She excused herself politely and walked away, leaving the man standing alone beside the piano. He watched her for a long moment, then turned and left the restaurant quietly. His earlier confidence replaced with humility. But the day wasn't finished, surprising her. As the afternoon rush began, customers arrived with curious smiles. Some asked if she would play again that evening. Others handed her small notes, thanking her for last night's performance. Word had begun to spread. People were talking about the waitress who played the piano like a professional. Some even walked in just to see her, even if she wasn't performing yet, around early evening. Just when Maya thought the crowd had settled, the restaurant's doors opened, and a tall man in a dark suit entered. He carried himself with confidence. Not the loud, arrogant kind, but the calm, refined kind that came from years of experience. He scanned the room before his eyes landed on her. He smiled politely and approached her table. "You must be Maya," he said warmly. Maya stared at him in confusion. "Yes, that's me," she replied. The man nodded and introduced himself. "I'm Daniel Foster, director of the city's School of Music and Arts." Maya felt her breath stop. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She had seen his face before online, on posters, even in videos shared by students. He wasn't just anyone. He was one of the most respected music educators in the entire region. "I was here last night," he continued. Sitting in the corner near the window, Maya's eyes widened. She hadn't noticed him at all. Not during the rush, not during the performance. "I heard you play, and I haven't stopped thinking about it since." Daniel's voice was steady and sincere. "Your talent is remarkable. What you did last night wasn't just playing, it was storytelling through music." Maya didn't know what to say. Her hands trembled slightly as she held her order pad. Daniel smiled gently at her shock. "I'd like to offer you something," he said, pausing for a moment as if choosing his words carefully. "A chance to return to music." Her breath caught. "I'd like to sponsor your full scholarship," he said. "Lessons, training, performances, everything." Maya felt the world tilt for a moment. The busy restaurant noise faded, replaced by the sound of her own heartbeat echoing in her ears. She had dreamed of this moment her entire life. Then she had buried that dream to survive, never expecting it to return. And now? A stranger, a respected director, was offering to lift her back into the world she thought she had lost forever. Tears gathered in her eyes as Daniel smiled kindly and said, "Talent like yours shouldn't stay hidden," and for the first time in years, Maya felt her future begin to open, like a door she never thought she'd knock on again. Maya stood completely still after hearing Daniel's offer. Her heart thumped so loud she could almost hear it echoing inside her chest. She wasn't sure if she was dreaming or awake. The restaurant around her continued to move, customers chatting, plates clinking, orders being shouted, but none of it felt real anymore. The only real thing was the man standing in front of her, offering her a life she once had and lost. A life she never believed she would touch again. "Are you sure?" she whispered, barely able to speak. Daniel gave a gentle nod. "I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it," he said. "You have raw talent, real emotion, and a natural understanding of sound that can't be taught." You deserve a chance to grow it. Maya swallowed hard. Her throat felt tight, her eyes stingy with tears she tried to hold back. She wanted to say yes immediately, but years of struggle had built a wall of fear inside her. A fear that whispered she wasn't good enough. That this couldn't be real? What if I'm not ready? She murmured. Daniel smiled kindly. You're more than ready, he assured her. And even if you weren't, that's what training is for. We help you reach your full potential. His words felt warm, comforting. Like someone lifting a weight she had been carrying alone for far too long. Maya's breath trembled, and her hands shook as she held her apron tightly. Before she could respond, her manager approached. His expression was serious, but his eyes held a strange excitement. Is everything all right here? He asked. Daniel introduced himself politely. The manager's eyebrows shot up in surprise. The School of Music Director, he repeated, almost whispering. Daniel chuckled softly. Yes, that would be me. The manager looked at Maya with amazement. You? You didn't tell me you were this talented? Maya lowered her eyes shyly. I didn't think it mattered, she said quietly. Her manager shook his head. It matters a lot, he said. More than you know. Daniel placed a hand gently on Maya's shoulder. Think about it, he said. Talk to your family. We can arrange everything, schedules, fees, support. Maya felt overwhelmed. Too many emotions pulling her in different directions. But Daniel's voice softened. You don't have to answer now. Take your time. But I'll be waiting for your call. He handed her his card. Thick, cream-colored, neatly printed, and gave her a warm nod before leaving the restaurant. Hours later, when her shift ended, Maya walked home with the card still clutched in her hand. The streetlights glowed softly. The night breeze brushed against her cheeks. Everything felt heavier and lighter at the same time. When she reached home, her mother was sitting up on the couch. Waiting for her, Maya's heart squeezed with emotion. She rushed to her mother's side and told her everything, the apology, the director, the offer, every detail spilling out like a waterfall. Her mother listened quietly, tears filling her tired eyes. Maya, she whispered, this is your chance. The chance you prayed for, the chance you cried for when no one was looking. Maya sank to her knees beside her mother, her hands shaking, her voice trembling. But Mom, what about you? Your medicine? Our bills. I can't just leave everything. Her mother smiled weakly and cupped Maya's face in her trembling hands. My sweet girl, she said. You've carried us for years. Let me carry you now. Even if only with blessings, Maya began to cry, her mother pulling her into a soft embrace. Music is your heart, her mother whispered. God didn't give you that gift to hide it in a restaurant corner. Maya closed her eyes tightly, tears soaking her mother's shoulder. She had been strong for so long, too long, and now. Finally, she allowed herself to be vulnerable. The next morning, Maya sat by the window of their small apartment. Staring at the card Daniel had given her, her hands shook as she held her phone. She had never been more scared and never more hopeful. After a long moment of fear and courage fighting inside her, she finally pressed the call button. Her voice shook when Daniel answered, "Hello." He said warmly. Maya took a deep breath. "I want to do it," she whispered. "I want to study again." Daniel's voice brightened instantly. "Wonderful decision, Maya," he said. "We'll take care of everything." He explained the next steps, paperwork, schedule options, scholarship details, and Maya listened with a mix of excitement and shock by the end of the call. She felt something she hadn't felt in years, a future that belonged to her. That evening, when she arrived at work, something unbelievable happened. A crowd had gathered near the restaurant entrance. People holding phones, whispering excitedly. Maya hesitated, confused. Her manager hurried toward her. Looking both stunned and dazzled. "Maya, your performance from last night." Someone uploaded it online, he said breathlessly. It's going viral. Maya's heart nearly stopped. Viral. She repeated, stunned. The manager nodded. Thousands of views. Now, tens of thousands. People are calling you the waitress pianist. Her knees felt weak. The world tilted again, not from fear, but from possibility, from destiny. From a dream finally waking up, and this time, Maya knew with certainty her life would never be the same again. Maya stood near the entrance of the restaurant, frozen in shock as her manager tried to explain what was happening. The crowd outside whispered her name, some holding their phones high, others pointing inside excitedly. It was overwhelming, unreal, almost like she had walked into a dream she once imagined when she was 12 years old. Except this time, it wasn't imagination. It was happening in front of her eyes. Maya felt her legs trembling as the manager guided her gently toward the counter, whispering, "You're trending." Everywhere, those words echoed inside her head, bouncing around like a bright light in a dark room. Everywhere, she repeated, almost breathless. She opened her phone with shaking hands. Dozens of notifications flooding the screen, messages from people she didn't know, comments praising her, reposts of her performance, articles with titles like "The Hidden Talent Working in a Small Restaurant." Maya stared at the screen, her heart thumping faster with every scroll. How could something so small, one forced performance, turn into something so huge? Customers walked in with wide smiles, asking her gently, "Are you the pianist from the video?" Some asked to take pictures with her. Some left small notes on the counter, thanking her for inspiring them. Maya didn't know how to handle so much love at once. After years of being unseen, unnoticed, unappreciated, this sudden spotlight felt like standing under the sun after living too long in the shadows. It warmed her, scared her, and filled her with gratitude all at the same time. But among the excitement, Maya stayed grounded. She still served tables with the same gentle smile, still greeted customers politely, still carried trays with steady hands, but inside, she carried something new, a growing flame of possibility, a belief in herself she hadn't felt in a very long time. Every time she passed the piano, she felt a soft pull toward it, as if it were inviting her to step into her new life completely. That evening, when the restaurant slowed down, the manager approached her cautiously. "There's something I want to ask," he said nervously. Maya looked up, curious. Her manager took a deep breath. "Would you be willing to play again tonight?" It wasn't a demand, not even a request. It was a hope. A gentle wish from someone who finally saw her as more than an employee. Maya felt her heart soften. She nodded slowly. "Yes," she whispered. "I'll play," the moment she sat down at the piano. The room grew silent. Phones lifted quietly, but respectfully. People leaned forward, waiting. Maya took a deep breath, placed her fingers on the keys, and began to play. This time, she didn't play old memories. This time, she didn't play sadness or lost dreams. She played something new, a melody she created that morning after speaking with Daniel. A melody filled with hope, healing, promise, and the quiet strength she had found inside herself. The notes rose gently, flowed through the restaurant like warm light, wrapping around every listener like a soft blanket. People felt it, the growth, the courage, the rebirth. Some cried, some smiled. Some closed their eyes and let the music carry them. Even Maya felt her emotions rising. She was telling her story through the keys, telling her pain, her journey, her dream returning to life. And when she touched the last note, the sound lingered like a heartbeat in the air. The applause that followed was not loud. It was emotional, respectful, full of admiration. Maya breathed deeply. Letting the moments sink into her soul, she felt whole, complete, like she had finally stepped into the person she was meant to be. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. Music never leaves the heart. Tonight, she truly understood that. Over the next few days, everything changed quickly. Daniel scheduled her first meeting at the music school. Her scholarship paperwork was processed in record time. Students and teachers already knew her name, the viral pianist they called her. But Maya didn't let fame walk ahead of her. She kept her heart humble, focused, grateful. Every time she practiced in the studio, she remembered where she came from, the small apartment, the dusty piano in the restaurant, the rude man who unknowingly triggered her comeback. Speaking of him, one afternoon he returned quietly. Not as a troublemaker, but as a changed man. He approached Maya with gentle steps, holding a small box. "I wanted to give you something," he whispered awkwardly. Inside was a simple charm bracelet shaped like a musical note. "To remind you," he said softly, "that your talent matters." Maya accepted it with a warm smile. Forgiveness flowing easily through her heart. Everyone deserves a chance to grow. And he had grown. 2 weeks turned into months. And Maya's life blossomed. She performed in public events, small concerts, school recitals. Her mother grew stronger with better care, proud beyond words. And the restaurant, the place where everything began, framed a picture of the piano with a plaque under it that read, "Where Maya's story awakened." And one evening, as Maya sat at her new piano at home, playing gently under soft yellow light, she realized something powerful. Her dream had not returned by accident. It had been waiting patiently inside her heart, waiting for her to be brave enough to touch it again. And now she was, fully, proudly, beautifully, the musician she was always meant to be.